Well, good morning there, sports fans. We're out here, somewhere outside of Berlin, taking the train out to Hangelsberg, running around through the woods in search of some elevation, as much as we can find that in this part of Germany, for a few hours, and then hopping on the old train back in Aachen, back home, and that's about it. It's mid-January now. In a couple weeks I head out to Kenya for 2 weeks, or for 1 week. For most of 1 week I'll be in Tsavo National Park for a safari, doing some video interviewing stuff down there, and then it's over to E10, where a lot of the country's elite athletes live and train. We'll be doing a 1 week running camp over there. And so basically a lot of the training up to then has been not for a race necessarily, but to attempt to save face in front of the Kenyans in E10. So we'll see how that goes. But I am signed up officially for my first race of the season, and that will be in Turkey, Western Turkey, a little bit south from Izmir. And this should be really cool because, to try to make a long story short, we were going to sign up for a race in Barcelona, outside of Barcelona, but dates, location changed, and we really wanted our first race to be on that weekend. And it turned out there was this race in Western Turkey, and this happens to be a part that used to be known as Smyrna, where Melanie's great-grandmother was from before, and you can look up the history, before being forced out of there and, making her way to the U.S. for refuge, essentially. And actually, I think this is really fascinating. We found out she entered the U.S. like weeks before this wildly anti-immigration bill passed in the U.S. in the early 1920s. So, and that bill basically said, amongst other ethnicities, no more Greeks. So her great-grandmother made it in just under the wire. So obviously I'm glad that happened, that she made it in. So yeah, we're training right now to save face in Kenya and to run around basically my wife's ancestral backyard. I signed up for I think it's like 43 kilometer race. I figured this is a good one to start with because I want to see this year how much I really like the ultramarathon distance, and how much do I just, like something, in the 30s. I think 30 something kilometers is a great distance for trail running because, unless you're an elite athlete, this is what you can make your living off of. It's not there's not too many time constraints in training for 30 something kilometers for a trail race. So you can train, go do that, have a blast, but it's not like sucking out all the air from your trip. I always wonder, people who can run like those 100 kilometer distances or further, and they're traveling far distances to go do these races, but then sure, you get to see a lot as you're running, but I also like, to get food in the culture, and I don't want my memory of some interesting places in the world to be, oh no, I didn't have that dish, but I did have about 10 energy gels. So this year is about exploring a little bit what distances I'd like and seeing if it's even feasible for me to train for further distances. So starting off with that Western Turkey race in about 40 something kilometers, and I'm eyeing some other races that will take me up to like 60, 70, and possibly, maybe 100 kilometers, because, I'm not against the idea of seeing if I could run something like a Western States, but of course you need to qualify for that. by doing a 100-kilometer race at least. So kind of keeping an eye out that for the summer. We'll see. But yeah, in the short term, it's saving face in Kenya and running around in Turkey. So I've been running pretty straight on this path, and just the way the dead trees are hanging over the path, it's giving me very much like I'm running to the remote castle vibes that I shouldn't be running to. Nothing good happens there. This is the castle where somebody past their medical prime is sewing together dead body parts and sending shockwaves in hopes that it brings them to life, and immediately tries to overrun the townspeople. Here, give you a little spin. So you get a little spooky vibes out here. But I guess that's what you get when you're training in Berlin in January. Alright, quick check-in here as we get to be about halfway through today's run. Feeling pretty good. Legs are a bit heavy. I've really picked up the mileage, the kilometers over the past few weeks. I think I mentioned in my year wrap-up video I had a wee bit of a health scare back in the US. So lost some of my training recovering from that, but then really picked it up recently. But overall, still feeling good. Don't feel like, felt a little bit of something in the Achilles. It's like, oh, I'm gonna keep an eye on this, not run if it gets worse, but strangely running feels like it kind of helps. And now I feel totally fine. Oh yeah, just keep on keeping on. This is the one thing that I don't necessarily like about training for ultras, is how much time it eats up on the weekend, especially if you do have a 9-to-5, as I do. Maybe I would feel differently about that if I did live someplace where these are very nice trails, very lucky to have them, but if I lived somewhere where it was just a tad more scenic and like right outside your door, maybe I would feel differently about it. Overall, in the grand scheme of things, mentally, when I think about like, oh yeah, I'm gonna spend a good 3 hours outdoors today on a day in which, had I not been running, probably wouldn't do a whole lot, stay indoors. So mentally I do like that, but yeah, it really does eat up a lot of time, and I like pushing myself, see what I can do. But I think at some point I'm gonna be wondering at what cost. And that sounds a bit dramatic, but you know, you miss being, you don't stay out as late with friends. You maybe spend a little bit less time with your significant other. And you only live once. You gotta make the most of things. So I think in the end it is gonna be about finding that balance. But I'm fine devoting at least a good chunk of this year to the idea of seeing, you know, where is that sweet spot of balance for me. If you found that sweet spot of balance, let me know in the comments and save me a lot of time. Let me know where it is.